Um, Constantine, could you just share the next slide, please? So as I say, we're here with colleagues from many different teams from Wellcome, including the Data for Science and Health team with Matt Brown and Naomi Hertz. We have members from the mental health team, Hannah Atkinson and Lampros, and also members of the research funding team, Greg, all from Wellcome. And we're also really delighted to have Miguel with us from Google, who will be here to talk a little bit about the industry partnership options in this new research accelerator. Next slide, please. So today's agenda really is to really deep dive into what this new research accelerator and funding program on generative AI for the anxiety, depression, and psychosis is all about. We'll sort of explore the two stages of this funding program, the first being the research accelerator, and the second being Wellcome's exclusive funding call for accelerator participants as stage two. We'll deep dive into eligibility and remit of the program, as well as the accelerator application process. And most importantly, we'll have a good 20 minutes or so at the end to answer any questions that you might have about the accelerator or funding program that we're launching today. Next slide, please. We are, as you can tell, using the Zoom webinar function today. And so we really would encourage you to use the Q&A function as and when you have questions throughout the presentation and after. We'll hold all the questions to the end, so just feel free to populate those, but also make sure you upvote questions that you think are most pertinent so that we can, make sure that we address those most applicable to everyone here on the call at the end. And again, feel free to use the chat function. That's fine if you want. And again, just to say that we are recording this event. We'll be sharing this online for you or others who weren't able to make it today to have a look at and go through the webinar at a later date. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Matt Brown, who will give a little bit of a scene setting as to why we're here today and what we're launching. So over to you, Matt.
Thanks a lot, Bradley, and thanks everyone for joining. It's great to see so many people dialing in from so many different places, so it's fantastic. Um, yeah, so I was just going to give a quick overview as to what's brought us here and the overarching aims for what we're trying to get done at Wellcome, together with Neuromatch and Google here. So we know that as mental health problems are closely tied to language, both in terms of measuring mental health problems and also in some forms of intervention. Generative AI offers a really important opportunity to improve and even rethink the way we measure and treat mental health problems. And so here we think there's an opportunity to bring together researchers, healthcare professionals, developers, ethicists, and people with lived experience to help really explore the potential of generative AI to aid mental health. And so with this particular activity, our aim is really to lay the groundwork for what could be a large and positive impact of generative AI in mental health by funding the development of a new generation of mental health first generative models. And so we're looking for teams of researchers that will build projects to this end, they could be optimizing how generative AI can be used in measuring mental health, or showing how generative AI models can work in collaboration with clinicians and people with lived experience safely and efficiently. And so I think it's important to say at this stage that we are looking to support fundamental research in this regard. And so we consider real world deployment of generative AI powered solutions as beyond the scope of this program. And in order to sort of proceed with these activities, we've really designed the program in two stages. So we've got the first stage, which is this research accelerator. So we'll have a 4-month program run by Neuromatch, and that will really be there to support teams to build out their project proposals. And then the teams that are in the accelerator will be eligible to apply for a funding call for up to £3 million and up to 2 years in duration to really capitalize on those projects that they've built through the accelerator. And so that's a very high level overview as to where we've got to. I'll post a link in the chat, which links to a perspective piece from our Director of Mental Health, Miranda Wolpert, on this. and then I'll hand back to Bradley.
Great. Thanks very much, Matt. And so we also wanted to sort of acknowledge MEXA and the platform that's sort of beginning to build this sort of research ecosystem at the sort of intersection of mental health and AI. And at MEXA, we've been working, so MEXA has been sort of a product of a partnership between Wellcome and Neuromatch to promote global interdisciplinary collaboration at this intersection of mental health and artificial intelligence. Um, we really understand that in order to leverage AI to create real evidence-based solutions for mental health, it will require effective collaboration between many different types of people and researchers with diverse skill sets and backgrounds. And so with MEXA, we're really trying to bring this new research community together. Um, what we've offered so far is we've been able to build a sort of a new research ecosystem, a new research community, and provide seminars, workshops, hackathons, and other opportunities to foster new connections and collaborations across this new research sort of community. And to date, actually, we've now have 470 researchers across 60 countries already signed up to this platform. And if you haven't already, we really would encourage you to sign up as we are planning to sort of use our MEXA platform as our key point of communication moving forward with the accelerator application process. So please do sign up if you are interested in the accelerator and are interested in seeing learning more about other MEXA sort of initiatives and community activities that the platform has to offer. Um, Next slide, please. So as Matt alluded to, we sort of this new research accelerator and funding program is being split into two different stages. Stage one is our research accelerator, what we're here to sort of discuss in detail today. And this is to really support teams to produce high quality proposals at this intersection of AI and mental health. Teams accepted into this accelerator will gain critical support, including research proposal development, workshops on designing pilot experiments or using project code and data management for collaborative research projects, funding for pilot research and pilot model development, potentially including, like compute power and other resources that you might need to do that research. Funding to cover contributions of team members that can't join the accelerator as part of existing salaried positions, collaboration opportunities with foundational model industry partners, including Google, which we'll go into a bit more detail later on in the presentation. Really importantly, expert-led support for integrating lived experience into your research proposals, and that's something we'll talk about as well in more detail, and something that's critical to the success of these research proposals moving forward, as well as ethics support to ensure responsible AI development in your research programs. So with the Research Accelerator in stage one, although you won't be able to ask for explicit funds in your application, if you are selected to participate in the program, we at Neuromatch will work with teams to provide the support that you require. We'll assess what sort of support that you might need to really develop these high quality proposals and work to equitably distribute the resource that we have across the teams accepted into the accelerator to do so. Um, the next stage then is this exclusive funding opportunity hosted or offered by Wellcome. So teams only accepted into the accelerator will have this opportunity to apply for Wellcome's funding call at the end of the accelerator on generative AI for anxiety, depression, and psychosis. This will be for up to £3 million in funding per award for up to 2 years. And I just want to stress one more time that only teams that are accepted into the accelerator will have the opportunity to apply for this funding call. So if you are interested in applying for the funding call, you need to apply for the accelerator and be accepted into it. Yeah, next. We have sort of our three-stage sort of timeline here, or stage zero. So stage zero includes matchmaking, which we'll go to in a bit more detail later, but we really want to make sure that teams have the right balance of expertise moving forward with the accelerator. And so we're offering teams who may need additional expertise or individuals who are looking to apply to the accelerator, but don't have a team yet to apply with, to apply for our matchmaking process. And that matchmaking deadline will be on the 14th of April. We'll be able to give teams sort of matches by the 30th of April, and we'll also be offering an accelerator application workshop before the application deadline for the accelerator on the 7th of May, and we'll be providing more details for that in the next coming weeks. Stage one is our research accelerator. So applications for this will open today. They are live on the scheme page, which we'll be posting in the chat. On the 24th of March. And the deadline for these will be the 28th of May. Decisions for the outcome of your accelerator applications will be in late July, and the 4-month accelerator program will begin in August 2025. This 4-month program will run until December 2025, when application deadlines for the funding call for this £3 million over 2 years award will close. So that funding call will open at the start of the accelerator so that teams can understand what Wellcome are looking for in that application process for the bigger funding award, but will close in December with decisions announced sometime in February 2026. Now I'm going to hand over to Naomi, who will do a little bit of a deep dive on eligibility and remit to both the stage one and stage two of the funding program.
Thanks, Bradley. So, as I think we've emphasized, this is for teams only. Teams are 2 to 8 members and must have expertise in mental health, generative AI, ethics, and lived experience of mental health. The lead applicant criteria, so lead applicants must have the experience to lead a collaborative research proposal. They must be able to commit sufficient time during the accelerator phase as well as the full proposal if selected to deliver those activities. And they must have a permanent open-ended or long-term rolling contract for the duration of both the accelerator and the full award. Co-applicants can be from academia, healthcare, non-government organizations, government, or industry, anywhere in the world except mainland China. And collaborators will provide technical, clinical, or data access support, but don't lead research. The administering organization must be nonprofit, but for co-applicants and collaborators, they can be based at commercial organizations. Lead applicant and co-applicant organizations must be able to sign up for Wellcome's grant conditions, more information will be on the scheme page. And individuals looking for teams, as Bradley mentioned, can apply for the matchmaking service, as well as teams looking for additional people to kind of fill in gaps. So Bradley will talk about that in a minute. Next slide, please. So the research remit, we want the proposals to look at least one of these 2 aims. It could look at both, but at least one of these aims. So the first aim is creating or improving models and computational approaches so they can safely and effectively perform complex tasks to address challenges in mental health measurement and intervention. And the second aim is producing evidence of how generative models can or should collaborate with mental health professionals and beneficiaries. So the first aim could look like improving model capabilities that work with sensitive data. An example for the second aim would be comparing the strengths and weaknesses of AI models and human experts to identify how they could complement each other. There's more examples. Those are just a few. There's more examples on the scheme page, which I think will be linked to in the chat. The scope of the program. So the program won't support any real-world application of generative AI. Proposals are welcome to test models, measures, and interventions within consented research groups in controlled environments, but they must not deploy solutions for broader access by the general population. Next slide, please. So there is opportunity to have industry partnerships for this program. There's 3 ways to do this. So first, if you have a pre-existing partnership with industry that you want to work with, you're welcome to do so. The second is partnering with Google. So Wellcome is collaborating with Google to kind of give an opportunity to apply and express your interest in working with them. Teams who do that would receive support from subject matter or technical experts at Google Health and Google DeepMind. They'll receive compute resources as relevant for their project and guidance and access to models as appropriate for their project. And then the third way is to not partnership with industry. So it's not a requirement to have a model partner. It's just an option if you're interested. So working with a specific provider, including Google, doesn't give anyone an advantage to their application. And requesting a collaboration with Google doesn't guarantee you'll be able to work together. And you may wish to work with other providers as well. It should be based on what would be most beneficial to your research project. And you should have a clear justification for why you're requesting or using the specific foundational models. Next slide, please. I will pass over to Hannah to talk about lived experience involvement.
Thanks, Naomi. So yeah, it's been mentioned that we expect all applications to involve lived experience. So I just thought I'd explain a little bit about what we mean by that. So we understand lived experience as a unique form of knowledge, insight, and expertise that comes from having first-hand experiences of mental health challenges. So this is separate to the lived experience of carers, for example, or of clinicians. We're very much talking about people who have that first-hand experience. And given the scope of this call, when we refer to people with lived experience, we mean people who identify as having experienced either anxiety, depression, or psychosis. And that could be currently or in the past. And they don't need to have been diagnosed by professionals or accessed services. Not sure what's going on with the slides. We've moved off lived experience, if we could go back to that one. And just to say in terms of like what models you use to employ lived experience involvement within your projects, we're very open to what you think the best model could be. So you might have lived experience experts as co-applicants or as collaborators or any different models. What we're looking for really is that the model is appropriate to sort of answer the questions in terms of those perspectives that you really need. Great, thank you. I think we're back on the right slide now. And it's in terms of lived experience involvement, we're not looking for sort of storytelling or testimonials. Lived experience experts should be engaged as colleagues who use their knowledge and expertise to inform the strategic direction, design, and delivery of the research. So that's including in leadership and governance roles. I will pop in the chat some more information about lived experience involvement from the Wellcome website, and there will also be further support provided on this during the accelerator. And just to mention, Bradley touched on this, that there will be funding available for people who can't take part in the accelerator as part of a salaried position. So this is a great opportunity for example, lived experience experts who are operating in a freelance capacity to be able to be funded for their involvement. Next slide, please. So we're also looking for all teams to engage with ethics and to have the relevant expertise in terms of AI ethics across the research pipeline. So model development, model refinement, evaluation and deployment. And this expertise should also be relevant to the specific context and area of research. Within the application, we'll be asking applicants to consider the ethics of their project, specifically in terms of how they can maximize benefits and minimize harms, how those harms and benefits can be fairly distributed, how the project respects and responds to the express needs of people with lived experience, as we've just touched on, and how they will ensure that the project is transparent and accountable. And again, there'll be support provided on this during the course of the accelerator. Back to Bradley, thanks.
Thanks, Hannah. So yes, as we've sort of been alluding to, we are offering a matchmaking service. This is something that we've done historically at Neuromatch using our matchmaking algorithms. So what we'll aim to do is to match individuals who are seeking teams to apply for with the accelerator, to match their expertise to gaps in other teams' expertise, and vice versa. Teams who have identified a gap in expertise in their teams who are looking to fill that with individuals who are willing to participate in the accelerator will also be matching you. So just to emphasize here that only team applications are accepted into the Research Accelerator. And so if you are looking for a team, we encourage you to go through this matchmaking service. You can do this by applying to the matchmaking service link, which we'll be providing in the chat here shortly. It's also linked to in Wellcome's scheme page for the accelerator. And so you should do this by the 14th of April. Um, we're not forcing individuals to sort of put an application together with anyone we match you with. This is just an opportunity to encourage collaboration and strengthen teams. It's up to you to sort of identify if the match is the right fit for you to move forward with. But we would encourage you to sort of to go through the matchmaking service. It doesn't cost anything. It's absolutely free, and it would be a good opportunity to sort of strengthen the expertise that you have across your teams. Next slide, please. So then, yes, the research accelerator, the sort of non-optional part, the matchmaking is completely optional, but if you want to participate in the research accelerator, you need to apply by the 28th of May, which is the accelerator stage deadline for applications. So if make sure you look out for that deadline and keep that penciled in your sort of calendar because it's a sort of non-negotiable here. And we will be offering an accelerator application workshop, which is optional, but will be planned for the 7th of May in preparation for that 28th of May deadline. We're hoping to do this. Well, we will be doing this on the 7th of May, which means that anyone who's opted into the matchmaking service will have already been emailed their matches before the workshop. So you can sort of come together maybe as new teams and sort of finalize the details for those applications coming into our accelerator. Next slide, please. So over to Naomi. Thanks.
Thanks, Bradley. I'll talk about the application criteria assessment. So 60% of the assessment from an advisory committee will be around the team skills and experience. So as we've emphasized, it should be a multidisciplinary team with the appropriate skills, including technical expertise to deliver the research using generative models, including lived experience experts who have the necessary skills to effectively involve and collaborate with people with lived experience, and expertise in AI ethics for responsible AI development. The lead applicant must have the experience necessary or support structures in place to lead and drive the large-scale proposal, and co-applicants must be essential for the delivery of the project and make a significant contribution. Next slide, please. The remaining 40% will be around the potential for impact and feasibility of the approach, so around the research idea. The potential should lead to one of the first three bullets there, which is novel ways to measure the presence, nature, and/or degree of depression, anxiety, or psychosis. Improvements in how measures are used or scored by integrating multimodal information, and more effective or more scalable therapeutic intervention in future downstream application. And no matter which of those the research leads to, it should also include impact responsive to the expressed needs of people with lived experience of anxiety, depression, or psychosis. And then finally, it will be evaluated on whether the approach is feasible. So justifying with evidence the use of methods chosen for the proposal, deliver newer improved generative models that are better specialized for application in mental health, generate evidence on how to best design collaborations between Gen AI, mental health professionals, and end users, ensuring the appropriate selection of foundation models for the research question, and again, attending to the range of ethical considerations arising and managing sensitive data appropriately and compliant with data protection regulations. Next slide, please. I'll hand back to Bradley.
Yeah, so this is just to sort of wrap us up and then open up our panel for answering all the questions that are starting to come through our Q&A chat. So yes, our first stage is stage 0. This is completely optional. This is for individuals who are looking to potentially go through our matchmaking process to either find teams where there are individuals looking to apply their skills to this research accelerator, or teams who are looking for individuals to fill gaps in their expertise to form, really strong collaborative teams coming through the accelerator. The deadline for this is the 14th of April, and matches will be emailed out to those who've indicated their interest in the process by the 30th of April. We'll also be holding an optional accelerator application workshop on the 7th of May, and we'll be sharing more details to those about that in the next week or two. So then stage one is our research accelerator. Applications for our research accelerator have opened. You can find them on Wellcome's scheme page, and more information about everything we've discussed today there. The deadline for this will be the 28th of May, and decisions for the accelerator will be announced in late July, with us beginning the accelerator sometime in August. This will be a 4-month accelerator, and applications for that exclusive funding opportunity that is open only to those accepted into the accelerator will open in August, but will close in December, at the end of the accelerator timeline, making sure teams have the right time to really develop those high quality proposals, and to put them in for the larger Wellcome bid for up to £3 million in 2 years. And we'll be announcing those funding decisions for the larger funding call in February 2026. So yeah, as I've said, just please have a look at the scheme page. We'll put that in the chat one more time here. Lots more details on there, lots more links to the matchmaking applications and other opportunities in there. And now we have time to sort of start answering through your questions. So if we could go back to the panel view, please, and stop sharing your screen, Constantine, and we can, yeah, start answering questions. Thanks. Um, we have one question I think that's sort of helpful to maybe kick us off with about sort of how Neuromatch will be sort of looking at resource and giving resource during this accelerator time frame. So we'll be kind of working with individual teams as they are accepted into the accelerator to really assess what sort of resource they need. This could be maybe they're sort of lacking in AI sort of ethics space, and maybe providing um, some funding or resource to kind of collaborate with an AI ethicist sort of to strengthen that perspective in their proposals. This could be providing some compute power to sort of undertake some proof of concept sort of research studies. This could be working with lived experience experts if you don't have that as part of the team to really embed that into your research proposal. And really a number of other things. So we'll be kind of looking at what the sort of individual needs of each team are to sort of develop those high quality proposals over that 4-month time frame, as they come in. But what we will make sure is that we sort of equitably provide the resource that we have across the teams that are accepted into the accelerator program. Um,
Bradley, there were a few questions related to kind of team, that maybe I can try and bundle up in an answer if
sure,
that's
that'd be
helpful.
great.
So, I think there was a question of whether sort of affiliations and what makes someone eligible or not. So you'll see the requirements on the scheme page, but we expect a lead applicant to be either from an academic institution, higher education institution, non-profit, etc. So we expect the lead applicant to be from there. You can have other entities come in as part of an application as well. They just can't be leading that application process. So that's one thing. We do expect team members to be able to, we don't have a specific requirement of percentage of time that people would commit to this, but they need to convince us that they're committing enough time to be able to deliver the work that they're proposing as part of the projects. And then just one question around sort of salaries and commitments in terms of contracts. So we do expect people to have contracts, lead applicants to have contracts for the full duration of the awards, which just ensures that the work will be able to continue up until it's finished.
Thanks, Matt. That's helpful. Um, we do have a question around kind of consented research context, and how that constrains how tools are developed during the program. So regarding the statement that applications are not to deployed outside of consented research context, does that also constrain how tools developed during the program can be shared, deployed after the end of the program? I wonder if Naomi or Matt, you might
Yeah,
want to take that one.
yeah, I can try share as well. So I think the goal of this at the moment is, as I said at the beginning, kind of fundamental research. These will be grants delivered to primarily academics or non-for-profit institutions. However, we do um, consider that actually some of the research, and we hope that some of the research developed through these proposals would lead to some kind of products which may end up in a kind of IP commercialization scenario. So we do accept that. Wellcome has a defined process through our grant conditions where we would deal with those kind of applications as and when they come up. But you can see through our grant conditions the kind of standard approach that Wellcome would take there if you're interested in doing that.
Thank you. We have another question, sort of similar to Teams, but more about sort of dedication, time dedication to the accelerator program. Does anyone want to offer answering that question? What sort of time commitment we're looking for? Is it full time for the whole duration of the accelerator?
I can go ahead and answer that one as well if it's helpful. I think again, just commensurate with the work proposed. So we're not expecting folks to give their full time this award. We recognize that people have other activities ongoing, other grants running, etc. But again, you just need to be able to convince us that you've carved out the requisite amount of time needed in order to work on these and deliver the work that you lay out in the proposals.
We have some questions around matchmaking that I will quickly kind of answer. Um, Basically asking whether or not teams can be matched with individuals or individuals can be matched with teams. The answer is yes to both. We're basically evaluating your team composition to understand where you might have a gap in expertise. So, for example, we might have a lived experience expert who is looking to offer their expertise to this accelerator program, but doesn't have a team already. And we might have a team that kind of comes into our matchmaking process that has, let's say, AI ethics, good AI kind of understanding and mental health research and practice understanding, but doesn't have any lived experience expertise on the team. And so that's sort of that's a match where we would make a good match between those two with maybe some other shared interests based on our algorithm. So yeah, really just encourage everyone to sort of um, sign up to the matchmaking process if they think that the team could value more additional expertise. Um, um, we have some questions around sort of whether or not undergraduate students or PhD students could be a part of the application process for the accelerator. Greg, do you maybe want to answer that one?
Yeah, unfortunately, not PhD students or undergrads not usually able to hold Wellcome grants. Sorry.
Thanks for clarifying. Helpful. Um, we have a question that's come through the chat about bigger picture that maybe Matt or Naomi or Miguel you could answer. It's would you be able to put a few more words, details to why your two key research aims? Why these two aims and what core problems you're hoping they will be able to solve in this context?
Yeah, I can start, and Naomi, feel free to chime in. So, um, in terms of the high level, the initial goal of this was to really understand where and how generative AI might be most valuable in the context of mental health research. And so around sort of different ways and different approaches to measure mental health problems is one key component. Especially due to the fact that sort of diagnosis or measurement of mental health problems is often language based. So, how can generative AI assist in that? And then in terms of intervention, of course, there are certain types of interventions which are entirely language based, and many other types of interventions which involve interactions with between people with mental health problems and healthcare professionals. And so, how can generative AI provide a layer input and insight that will help improve the interaction between health professionals and people with mental health problems? And so, I think that's really where we see the potential interest here. And that's why we've structured the program accordingly.
Like to add a few words on that
Please.
too. So from the Google side, I think something we see is as we tackle different problems on not only mental health but in health in general, we look closely at prevalence, and we see these kind of disorders are the ones that are more prevalent regardless of the country. So that's one thing. And the second thing is instead of forcing a technology in an area, in every single area, the way that we look at it is like, what is a good technology a problem fit? And as Matt outlined in terms of like the type of data and really the multimodality of the data, how that fits to the models that more recently have been developed, we feel there is a very strong fit, and there is a way of, we think there might be a way for power boost development and really solutions for people in this space by leveraging generative AI. So is yet to be determined and explored, and I feel like this group of people who will come to this accelerator and really the program will help to uncover the potential of generative AI in these applications.
Great. Thank you both. Hannah, I have one for you around lived experience. So what kind of documentation description is required in the application for this person's role in lived experience?
Thanks, Bradley, and great question. So we're not going to be looking for any sort of documentation. We're not looking for any disclosure of sort of anyone's diagnosis or anything. What we will be looking for is that person seems to have the relevant expertise to fulfill the role that you want them to in the project. So, for example, if you were doing a consultation with sort of a group of people with lived experience via an advocacy organisation, then we wouldn't be expecting any sort of previous experience engaging with research amongst those participants. But if you have someone who is, for example, leading the lived experience engagement as part of your team within your project, it might be good to know if they've got previous experience sort of leading that sort of work and facilitating that sort of insight to meaningfully shape the research. So hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Lampros, this sort of came up in the previous webinar that we hosted this morning or earlier today, depending on where you are in the world, around sort of what's in and what's out with the mental health remit. So there's one specific question about whether or not this would cover dementia, but maybe you could also elaborate a little bit more about what's within the remit within the mental health side.
Yeah, thank you, Bradley. It is a really good question. Also, another comment on gambling. So, the Wellcome Mental Health Strategy covers anxiety, depression, and psychosis, but we have a broad definition of this. So, we do include OCD, PTSD, bipolar disorder, and perinatal mental health problems in our definition of these conditions. So technically, if you are looking strictly at something like eating disorders, autism, or dementia, that would be out of scope. However, what is in scope is looking at these conditions within the context of anxiety, depression, and psychosis as we broadly define them. So, for example, if you look at gambling in people with bipolar disorder, this would be in scope. What is also in scope is looking at symptoms that are transdiagnostic or characteristic of a disorder. So, for example, you're looking at sleep problems, or you're looking at anhedonia or reward sensitivity. Something like this would be in scope for our work.
Great, thank you. There's also some questions around sort of the competition for the stage one and the accelerator, and also sort of realistically, for instance, there's a question, realistically, should teams without world-class experience and expertise consider applying? Um, Matt or Naomi, do you maybe want to take that one?
I mean, I think that you teams need to make an assessment of sort of where they are in the landscape, and if they have a really sort of potentially transformational idea. I think what we'll be obsessing on um, is the team well skilled? Do they have the expertise to deliver the work that they outline? And what is the potential impact of that work? And so that's kind of where we will sit in that space. So if you feel that you have a really compelling proposal to offer, then we'd encourage you to put a proposal in.
Great, thank you. Um, we have a couple of questions about about sort of team composition based on background. So could all team members be from industry? Is it okay to have no members of the team belonging to academia? Wonder if Greg, you could answer this one for us.
Yeah, as long as the lead is affiliated with one of those organizations, so like a higher education institution, a research institute, or a non-academic healthcare organization, or a not-for-profit or non-governmental research organization. As long as the lead's from one of those, the rest of the team can be from wherever.
And while I have you, can you be a part of two teams for the accelerator application?
Um, I don't believe so.
No.
Unfortunately, you cannot. You have to, if you're sort of on the fence, you would have to choose between one or two teams. Can only apply with one team for the accelerator. So thanks. Um, sorry, I'm just trying to find
There were a couple
one.
questions
Go on.
around like cap, how many teams would be accepted, and we don't have like a cap. Teams and applications will be judged on based on their quality. So we don't have a certain number that will get through or not.
Great, thank you. Uh, sorry, I'm just trying to find a good question we've not covered already. Lots coming through. We have had lots of questions about whether or not the slides will be shared for the webinar. We will be posting both recordings from the webinar earlier today and this webinar. They're both the same content, but we'll be posting links to the videos for both of those online later today, if not tomorrow. Um, uh, Most of these areas we've covered already. There's a question about the vagueness of the time commitment for the accelerator from participants. Is the purpose of the accelerator to help build the proposal? Does the accelerator require weekly, monthly meetings and things to do in between these sessions? Um, if one of you want to get started, I can also add to that once you get going.
Yeah, so I mean, I can get started. So I think that there's distinctions, right, between the amount of time that you as a team would take and invest in order to build the proposals, and then there are sort of formal touch points that Neuromatch offer to teams throughout the accelerator. So Bradley, maybe you can say a little bit to those formal touch points and what they look like. Other than that, I think we're leaving it open to teams to decide sort of what the cadence of meetings in order to develop competitive proposals looks like to drive towards the end of the accelerator phase. But maybe Bradley, you want to talk a bit to the stuff Neuromatch is offering.
Yeah, so we'll definitely be assessing teams sort of individually at the start of the accelerator program to really understand what type of resource we can offer you to really develop those high quality proposals at the end of the 4 month accelerator. But we'll also be offering kind of touch point workshops throughout the 4 months, some around embedding lived experience into your research proposals, some around embedding AI ethics into your research proposals, and other types of opportunities. to sort of provide feedback on your proposals as and when you're developing them. We will sort of expect some sort of touch points with our program managers to really, just understand that everyone's happy and sort of is getting on with sort of developing those proposals as a team. But we also are really hoping and to bring everyone together around late October time for an in-person kind of gathering for networking, but also to sort of share where you are at your proposal journey and get some live feedback on those proposals. And so that's something that we're really excited by, to also bring those international teams together in person, and share ideas and perspectives. So yeah. We do have a question around the sort of definition of generative AI, and whether or not this is constrained to LLMs or other types of generative non-language models, e.g. passive sensing, data generation, etc.
Yeah, I can take that. Also, Miguel can answer from the Google side if that's helpful. So I think, we are primarily focused here on large language models and language models. That's not to say that people might not bring other approaches and techniques to bear within the scope of the award and the accelerator and the future award. But we are definitely interested in the generative side and focusing on language here. Miguel, I don't know if you wanted to add anything from the Google side.
I think we're open to explore different areas. LLMs are the best fit, I will say, for most of our application. But I think as with a large creative group of people coming up with new ideas, that opens also the door to see like maybe you can incorporate different techniques, different tools. So yeah, we're really open to learn and share ideas as we go.
Wonderful. Thank you. We do have a question around sort of expertise, and what sort of level of expertise. So, what level of expertise does psychology, mental health team members need to have? Is any level of education allowed, e.g., a BS in psychology, or someone who's just finished their undergrad? So basically, what do we mean by sort of expertise in mental health?
I think I can split this one with Greg. I think in terms of the qualification, that's more of a research funding question. But in terms of what we qualify as kind of good enough mental health expertise, we don't have a very strong definition of this. So we don't require someone to have clinical experience in psychology or a specific title in a degree. There's a very broad definition. So you could be a neuroscientist, a sociologist, a psychologist, a psychiatrist, anyone that basically works within the wider mental health sphere, would be considered to be someone with an expertise in mental health. Welcome. Of course, that expertise will be assessed at the application stage. Greg, do you want to?
Yeah, there's no requirement to have a PhD to be a lead or co-applicant on this, as long as you have like sufficient expertise in whatever area you're working in. And yeah, and you can still evidence that in your application. That's fine.
Great, thanks. Greg, we still have a couple of questions around clarifications of how PhD students can or cannot sort of participate with the program. So maybe I just keep seeing a lot more upvotes and a lot more questions on that. So maybe just a final clarification on that would be helpful.
Yeah, so we wouldn't expect a PhD student to be able to hold a Wellcome award if they are like a pure PhD student. If they have like an alternate role, is they're like a contractor or a limited consultant or something, that's usually a possible way. It might be something I can get some more clarification as to what that means, and then maybe circulate like an FAQ or add it to the website. But for a lead, it wouldn't be a possible, as you wouldn't have like a salaried position. But for a co-applicant, potentially, if you have multiple positions on top of your PhD. I don't know if that helps or confuses things more, but
Thanks. We have a question for Google, Miguel. They just a little bit more information on sort of Google's role with the accelerator, and if Google will also be reviewing applications.
So I can, the first part, we have, just to give a little bit of visibility to people, we have a clinical team within the Google umbrella. So we call it Google Health. And in that team, we have different kind of clinicians, including psychologists. So psychologists that have been clinical psychologists, but also psychologists that are specialized in AI, mental health applications, as well as in research. So our expectation is to contribute with their knowledge from the clinical perspective slash AI, as well as from the other side, we have folks from the DeepMind team that they're the ones working, developing these innovative large language models and things like that that can help us also to kind of give some guidance to teams as they go through the process. So that will be part one. And you know, happy to add more context if it's helpful on that. But our expectation is to be able to support teams from the both sides. And can you remind me the other part, Bradley? Sorry.
The other part was whether or not Google would be participating in the review of the accelerator applications.
So we have spoken about this, and I think what we will do is like just give our concept on terms of like how we see the feasibility of the proposal. But I think it's really we're supporting Wellcome. It's really up to Wellcome to make any decisions. We really hear more like a supporting team, really, and be helpful as much as possible. But Wellcome is who is running the call.
Yeah, maybe I'll just also say to that, Bradley. So there'll be on the application form an opportunity for teams who would like to potentially work with Google. They'll be able to tick a box and they'll say why they would like to work with Google. If you do tick that box, then we will share your application with Google and Google will look at those and there'll be a kind of discussion for Google on whether or not that looks like a competitive application for them. We will also ask you, if this application isn't of interest for Google, what would be your backup plan? And then we'll assess you if Google aren't interested based on that backup plan. So Google won't see all applications that put in, only those that tick the box. You're not guaranteed to work with Google, but you will still be assessed based on the backup plan that you provide for the accelerator.
Great. Thank you both. We have a couple questions around Teams again. So first, I can answer really quickly. Can someone who did not attend the webinar become a team member? And the answer is absolutely yes. You don't need to have attended today's webinar to be able to apply for the accelerator. You would just apply through the normal route through the link in Wellcome's scheme page. And then another question around what is the ideal team size? Do two people constitute a team? What does the ideal team look like? I know it's a challenging one, but does anyone on Welcome's side want to take that over?
I'm struggling. So we're quite flexible on team size. Naomi, do we have a specific number that we would?
People, and I would say that as long as you're meeting all of the criteria for a multidisciplinary team with lived expertise, lived experience expertise, ethics expertise, and technical expertise, that would constitute a good team without a number being.
Yeah, I think I was just looking at the team on our scheme page. So we have anywhere between at least two applicants and at most eight, excluding collaborators. So that's just lead plus co-investigators. You can have multiple other collaborators if you need as part of an award.
Great. I can't see any more sort of burning questions that we've not addressed. Do others have a final one that maybe we haven't covered? We're looking. Yeah, I think okay. Um, well, with that, thank you very much to everyone for joining us from wherever you've joined us. I can see from the chat that we have a really widespread of geographies represented here today, which is amazing and wonderful to see. You can find most and all of the information that we've discussed here today on Welcome's scheme page. You can just we'll post it one more time here in the chat, or you can go to Wellcome's, you just search for Wellcome Generative AI and Anxiety, Depression, and Psychosis, and I'm sure it'll come up on your Google page. Um, so make sure to apply by May 28th for the accelerator stage. And if you're interested in the matchmaking process, do apply by the 14th of April. And thank you so much to our panel from Wellcome and Google. Really appreciate everyone being here today. And we look forward to working with you as a community moving forward with this. And one last plug to sign up for MEXA if you haven't already done so at MEXA, MEXA.app. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Mhm.